Welcome back to the Teacher's AI Cafe. I'm Kane, a teacher and a parent who wants AI to give us back our time. I share practical classroom-tested AI strategies to cut down your workload, improve your feedback and reduce stress so you can get your evenings back and be more present with your friends and family. No jargon, just actionable steps. Grab your mug. Now let's get going. Welcome back to the Teacher's AI Cafe. I'm going to cover a few different bits and pieces today. And looks like I've got a couple of teachers and people interested in AI and education interviews coming up, which I think is fantastic. Thank you for those two that have reached out so far. Definitely looking for more people to come online, have a chat, because the more you share, the more we learn from each other. Now, this is going to be an update and different, more information type one than an actual practical step. I'm just going to start with some information about different models, as in different platforms, and who's actually using what. Because we get these questions out, and then I'm going to go into what the different models and the main platforms, ChatGPT and Claude is the most popular. But are they, as I'm about to have a discussion about, which model to choose to actually do the work that you do? So we've just had a report released, I think a day or so ago, and they went through the review. I think it was, how much was it? 9,500 AI tools across 170 categories. This is from May 2025 to April 2026. So it's a really big figure. And they looked at growth and usage. And there's a lot of other data in there, but I'm really interested in just these two particular figures. Now, between all the top 7 platforms, there was 144 billion AI website visits. So that was individual visits to these websites. So the approximate market share, why it's down a lot, it's still quite dominant. ChatGPT comes in at number 1 at 64.7 billion visits, or 44% of the overall market. Now, an interesting one, and this is what caught my eye when I saw the article, is Canva, which is an Australian success story. It's still a private company. You can't invest in it. And they do the design, I'm sure, in education. You've used Canva, either with your students like I have, or you use it to actually build resources like I do. And one of the bonuses, they do actually have a free education account if you're a teacher, which is absolutely brilliant. But they also developed their own AI system. And obviously you can use it to do things, design and everything inside Canva. And that actually came in at number 2 in terms of an AI platform with 10.5 billion visits, or 7.3% of the market. But in the last year in the term, its market shares increased by 15%. Number 3 is Google Gemini with 6.9 billion, 4.8% of the market. DeepSeek, the Chinese one, 3.8, 2.6% of the market. Now, Claude, which everyone talks about, is actually only 3.4 billion. And I say since April, I say they've obviously picked up a lot because of all the positive publicity that came out of them not choosing not to work with the Defense Department, as well as the new features they've released and things like Fable. But their growth in that year period is 250%, but they're still only 2.5% of the market. Grok at 2.5 billion, 1.7%. They did grow 731% in that time. And Perplexity is the other one people talk about. It's 2.3 billion, or 1.6% of the market. So we see these figures and we see ChatGPT is most certainly the dominant one. I thought Claude would actually be second, but no, it actually comes in 5th in that time period. But I'm betting that will actually change by the next time this survey is done next year, because like I said, Claude has got a lot of growth in the last 3 months with different people. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is actually, let's have a look. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the different models. And a lot of people finding it really confusing, and most people just stick with the default. Is what happens now when you log in. I'll talk about ChatGPT and Claude. There's different models you can actually do. I'm going to focus on the new ones. ChatGPT is basically what they call Sol, Terra, and Luna. They're 3 different models, and I'll explain which are the different things you should use these different models for, because they do have different impact and different capabilities. So Sol is really good for doing, say, complete units, inquiry sequences, curriculum matching, source packs, more complex type thing. So it's the best option for constructing analytical rubrics, comparing work using multiple criteria, identifying patterns. So more complex ideas or structures or tasks, you use Sol, which is obviously the sun coming out of it. The next one is Terra, and Terra is named after the Earth. Terra is Earth, obviously from the Latin. It's the strongest choice when you're doing your routine planning, lesson outlines, learning intentions, success criteria, that type of arrangement. It's really good for question banks, rubrics, answer keys, formative checks, first pass type feedback coming through. Very capable in differentiation. So more that classroom level type of arrangements that you actually want to do, things you do in individual lesson plannings, things. So more one-off type of things, or it's very specific, as opposed to Sol, which looks at a more complex one. The last one is Luna, and this is good for maybe converting an approved lesson plan into multiple formats generating. So Luna is good when you're working with existing resources, you're looking to modify it and changing it. So it's really good for bulk, say multiple choice variants that you'd write them, you want to vary them in the system, answer formatting, but working with existing resources was what we want to use Luna for. The advantage, why a lot of us don't pay, but if you do pay extra for credits the idea is you can vary the different platforms you do. And personally, I never seem to run out of credit or usage on ChatGPT. So picking the different models really doesn't bother me. What it does do, though, is your response time. Obviously, if you pick something like Luna Instant, it's going to be faster than using, say, Sol, even faster on that one because the amount of thinking it does in the background. Now, Claude has a few different ones, and I'll talk about the latest ones. We've got Fable 5, Opus 5, and Sonnet 5. So these are the previous ones. And they've got Haiku 4.5. Now, you can go back and still pick things like Opus 4.8 up to this point, but eventually these models will actually disappear behind. Now, Fable 5, I've used up on my quotas by accident, and I was using Opus 5, and I forgot to untick use credits when you run out of your normal usage. And I was using Opus 5 to do some tweaking on a YouTube channel, and it used up all my $100 US credit in about 20 minutes. I actually don't think it was even that long. I just chewed through these credits. So I haven't got my Fable 5 credits anymore, which is a bit sad because I was going to use it for something. So I'm back to just waiting for the criteria. I was amazed how fast it chews through those credits. Anyway, let's go back on point. Fable 5. So this is excellent for it's equivalent to Sol, a large complex synthesis of different material research, curriculum redesign, multi-stage course development. So the idea is you can have long-running agent-orientated workflows, repeatedly, say, draft, revise resources coming through that. It's, like I said, it's very good for synthesis and interpretation of large amounts of information portfolio, and it's got high capacity in detailed differentiation, accessibility, audits. It's really equivalent to Sol, and Fable sit at the same level. In some aspects, Sol is now better than Fable. In other aspects, it's not. Like I said, depends on what you're trying to achieve out of it. So Claude Opus 5 has replaced Opus 4.8, which was the top model till recently. So Opus is good for tertiary course design, and this is 10 to what I set my model on because I didn't want to use up my credits, but I did it by accident. Good for high-level secondary units, research synthesis, curriculum policy analysis. So it's still very capable. And there has been some feedback that when it was first released, it did really well. But since then, people have been getting very mixed or strange results back out of Opus. It's not consistent. It's having brain phases, one way of describing it. So keep an eye on that. They might need to tweak the model a little bit. Sonnet 5, and this is probably the best one you choose as a teacher. It's really good for writing coherent lesson sequences, natural prose, rubrics, source-based planning, and so on. So you don't need the full power for the majority of things we do as teachers, but if you're doing your classroom preparation, individual lessons, generating resources, using Sonnet 5 is perfectly acceptable. The advantage also, particularly on Claude, when I've found using it, is the lower the model, the longer the time it runs, the less units or tokens, as they call it, you actually use up. Whereas I find I often always hit my limits with Claude. Obviously, the lower model you go down, the longer you can keep that process going for that. So Sonnet is the one we really want to do probably most things. For example, it's really good for differentiation, IEPs, drafts, different developing explanations, scaffold results, task sort of things going through. Now, there is one which is Haiku 4.5, and this is, like I said, a much older model, lower capable model. And this is good for maybe lesson template, completion summaries, translations, quick ideas, bulk formatting things. Often you've got existing resources or you want a really quick answer coming out of that. So as an educator, we've got different models we can choose. You don't always need the biggest and the largest depending on the task you do. So think about how complex the thing you want to achieve is it worth it? Then pick a live model. If you're using modifying existing resources, and I did that the other day in ChatGPT, and man, it did a fantastic job. And that was using Terra. They took a very old resource of source analysis, completely redesigned it visually, kept all the right elements. Because, like I said, it was a bit clunky. I designed it about 6 years ago. I need to fix it up, but it did it in 10 minutes and did an absolutely brilliant and fantastic job. I could just run with it and use the template design to actually develop differentiation based upon that. But like I said, when we do this, the best way to do it is see what sort of tasks you do, run it through the model and see what sort of result that you actually get. You can always run through different models to see what the outcome is, or work out which the best model is for what you actually wish to achieve on that. Okay, and the last thing we're going to talk about today is something new from OpenAI they've announced for educators. So what they've gone through is actually they've decided to announce some specific plugins for educators. So if you're not familiar, when you go into, say, Codex, is the best way to describe it, is you can add plugins. So if you go into, for example, Codex, on the left-hand side, they've got plugins. You can click on that link there, and it'll bring lots of different plugins if you have a look through. So you've got a computer use plugin to use a computer, things like Chrome, Gmail, Dropboxes, Canva, Gamma, and so on, Descript. Oh, a Descript one. That's what I used to do my recordings. I hadn't noticed that before. I might install that at the moment. So we've got these different plugins that actually come in, and you can then use it. But ChatGPT or OpenAI have actually announced one specific for different levels of education. So they've got a K-12 educator plugins, and this will give you, for example, the one's assignment translation, which is obviously changing different languages. So if you work in a multilingual school, this will do the transition for you while retaining your format and your structure and your framework in your actual resource. You could drop a task in there and it'll recreate exactly, but with the different languages for you. Second one is actually creating an exit ticket brief. So you can then put your resources in there and it'll generate an exit ticket, which is very nice. Next one is a family update, which allows you to obviously generate newsletters, information like this very quickly, so you can share that and send it to your parents. Probably more to a primary school than a high school or middle school type arrangement. In high school and here, we don't really do individual class messages like that. We do updates on our content management system. And the next one is actually generating a practice test very quickly. So the idea is you put in, do practice tests, select that plugin, and it'll generate one for you, whether it's online or a paper version. So for a K-12, they don't sound like a lot of plugins. They haven't reached me here yet in Australia. I do know I don't always get things that quickly, being outside the continental USA. But when we eventually get them, I'll have a play with them and we'll do an episode on how well they actually work. They've also got a college educator level one as well, and a college student plugin. So for the college level, they've got interactive teaching sites. I think that to a degree is like how we build websites now. I'm building, as I mentioned previously, building those interactive websites. Course calendaring, course material, and course poster. So I can generate a poster for you, but like I mentioned, you go use Canva to do that, honestly. Probably does a better job, but who knows? And the next one's college student plugin, and it's got interactive learning site, flashcards, and study plan. Things like flashcards are built into Google Notebook. I can see that. Now, if they can generate them and then you export them and put them in another system, that would be good. Because what I found, I haven't gone back and checked. The frustrating thing was in Google Notebook is you can only use it in Notebook, and my students aren't allowed to use that under our guidelines at the moment. So this is an opportunity. OpenAI is seeing this. I honestly think you get people to use it in school and education, and then when they move into the workforce, they'll actually use it there. And this is where the competition is trying to come in. Claude has also obviously tapped into that market as well, and Gemini it's obviously a natural ecosystem, can try and leverage that as well. So I hope you found this episode's information useful. Like I said, it's bringing up to date the different models, which one you use in what situation, how the actual terms of market share is working. And you hear a lot of this news around there, but market share is important because things with big market share, they're going to be around, or they're from a company that's got a big investment such as Google. They're going to be around a long time. You can actually start basing your workflows around them, because there's nothing more frustrating than basically taking on a platform, getting familiar with it, getting really efficient at it, and then it's suddenly disappearing or merging into someone else's company and you can't access it or they completely change the features on you. So like I said, definitely looking at that. And lastly, keeping our eye out for these plugins. I'd love to hear your ideas and thoughts on those. In the meantime, join the Facebook group. I've got a few more members now, and I've got about the same amount of people on the mailing list. And I'm looking forward to interacting and talking with you soon and hear your ideas. In the Facebook group, I would love it if, I'm going to put a post up, I think. If you've got any specific questions or things you'd like me go through, that would be fantastic because, like I said, I'm here to help you and give you the tools to actually go use AI to benefit yourself and hopefully free up lots of time and end up with a better result for your students. So until then, as always, take care, look after yourself, and thank you for listening.